2 line?
No, a 4-2 line.
4-2, okay, okay. So, and the Corviknight V in the prizes as well. Really unfortunate as well for Grant is that there is a Jolteon in the prizes.
Yeah, and so
once you're getting excited to take those prize cards and you're just going to pull a dead card that's not going to be any help to you in the matchup.
Yeah, you're going to be digging for that Arceus V-Star, and it's just not going to be good news. We'll have to see how Grant can navigate through this game when you don't have the best card in your deck.
Yeah, if Grant, once you take that full deep look into your deck and you understand what is prized, maybe there will be a little bit more aggression there to get into those prizes, get into the Arceus V-Star. But fortunately, both players starting off with the Arceus V mirror match. Usually, we don't see this. We'll see one player with Arceus, the other one has like a saw ball on the other side. So the solid foundation already beginning. Gabe opening us up here with a quick ball, getting rid of an escape rope, and now getting the first look at the deck.
Looks to be eyeing down a Galarian Zigzagoon here, maybe. There is a couple of those, but that's just how you get that number with Corviknight. You have that G-Max Hurricane dealing 240 damage. You have 30 more damage with Choice Belt. You need that extra 10 with that Galarian Zigzagoon so you can knock out opposing Arceus V-Stars.
Yeah, the players are really good about hitting those really key numbers, putting these combinations together, and being able to pick up the Galarian Zigzagoon on turn 1 like this means that Gabe is already setting up for the amount of HP that he'll need to take down.
Another thing to note is the Headbutt Tantrum also helps with the math with the double turbo energy and a Choice Belt on the Arceus V-Star. It helps you get that 220 number against your opponent's Arceus V. And with Gabe going first here, we'll have the first Arceus V-Star. And, you know, with Grant not having any at all, it's kind of a given.
Yeah, so having the advantage here, and we've seen how the Arceus decks can really snowball. Once you get the Arceus V-Star set up, not only are you getting that powerful Starbirth ability online to fill out your combinations, you also get that energy acceleration onto your next attacker. So Grant now is getting passed over to, has the double turbo attachment, and we'll see as the Evolution Incense, but if you go for the Evolution Incense trying to get the V-Star, it's going to be very rough for you. And plus, he's already seen, of course, Gabe grabbed that Galarian Zigzagoon, has the ping on there already, knows that this Arceus is potentially going to go down next turn with the right combinations.
And Gabe did end his turn pretty well. The Crobat for 2 found an energy card, and that's really all you needed to make this turn worth it. And now Grant is searching through his deck. You see the no Arceus V-Star, and you kind of have to pivot your game plan. This Arceus V is going to get knocked out next turn, most likely, if your opponent has the evolution. So you're going to Trinity charge up this Malamar, and just hope that's enough.
So we've got the Malamar going for the Evolution Incense, maybe going to grab that Malamar V-Max. No, grabs the Jolteon, gets it out of there.
Just something to discard with that quick ball.
Yes, yes, searching it out, using the fodder. Getting another Malamar. Okay, so getting a couple attackers set up, ready to go. Knows that this Arceus V is going to be pretty worthless for now, but is just using it as a speed bump, as a roadblock, and buying that time to get the main attackers set up and ready to go. As long as you can get the Trinity charge, Arceus has done something for you. And even though Gabe has the Arceus V in the active with the double turbo, has the Galarian Zigzagoon, does not necessarily have the V-Star and the Choice Belt.
Well, there was a Crobat for 5 from Grant here, but not really that good of a hand. You have that Professor's Research, but you have to discard a few resources. Here's the Evolution Incense. Could probably find the B-Barrel or the Malamar V-Max here. But if you do that, it just signals to Gabe that you do not have a V-Star at all.
You're giving a lot of information away, and by going for the preemptive Evolution Incense like this, just to search through the deck, just going to fail it, just taking another look through the list. You know, Gabe might just want to disrupt that hand somehow.
And with that Evolution Incense, I also think that means Grant might just play the Professor's Research this turn. Looking for the Jolteon, maybe. Yeah, and there we go. Discards a couple special energies, but when you don't have Arceus in your deck, you're not really going to attack with it. So Malamar VMAX is your best route to victory here.
Just searching for it, just digging through the list. Has an Eevee now, another card that you don't have need for. Going to discard 2 Eevee with the Ultra Ball.
Can't write it up better.
Yeah, exactly. This is something that we predicted, Jeremy, is Grant being able to use these cards that aren't good in the matchup and just get rid of them to activate your other effects. So despite Grant not having access to that powerful Arceus V-Star, this still looks like a fantastic foundation.
Oh, for sure. And having the Evolution Incense for next turn as well in hand, you can find either the Malamar VMAX or the B-Barrel and try to draw into the VMAX. And now Grant has to decide where to put that other energy. You can put it on the other Malamar, you can start building up the second one, or you can put it on the Arceus V, but again, you don't have the V-Star, and it looks like they're just trying to spread the wealth. You don't want to put that Malamar in too much of a risk.
And so now we're over to Gabe after that Trinity charge. And let's see what Gabe now has in store. Once again, looking for that Arceus V-Star, looking for that Choice Belt, trying to get the knockout. If we can get one of these Malamar Vs pulled up, maybe get some damage on it before it can evolve, get those powerful attacks down. The Max Jammer.
Oh, wow. That is
big research.
2 Boss's Orders and a Marnie with that research to go along with a Path to the Peak.
Grant very graciously showing us a little replay of what was just discarded. Gabe knows exactly what he needs, and it's not any of those powerful cards. It doesn't matter how good a card is individually if it's the wrong time for it.
Well, this is the right time for Arceus V-Star. Ultra Ball finds it, and with that, Gabe has the easy knockout here, unless the Choice Belt isn't in the deck, which it's in the prizes.
Oh, no, I forgot about that.
No, there's 2. Okay, there's 2.
Okay. Ooh.
All right.
Keeping track of those prizes, and this is something the players themselves are much better at than I am. They look through a deck once, and they can automatically calculate, what's missing, and so Gabe is already setting up, and there it is.
We use a picture, and we still struggle. That Starbirth ability, finding that Choice Belt, you already have the energy in hand, so maybe, yeah, that Crobat to try to draw some cards. You already played a supporter for turn.
Again, I really appreciate the Crobat VMAX, because Crobat V's been such a liability historically. It's like it's powerful effect with a massive downside, and now you're kind of shoring up that downside by turning it into a real attacker. And just the current metagame just facilitates having a good darkness attacker.
Yeah, and if you could just sneak it in your deck, that's easy to do, especially when you have a card like Arceus to power it up.
And there's the Corviknight VMAX as well. Super bling artwork. It's even hard to see what it is.
And there we see the Crobat drawing 4 cards for Gabe here. Already has the knockout on board, so really just trying to set up the rest of his hand.
Yeah, even when you have the play in mind that you want to make, you still have to think turns and turns ahead of time. What am I going to do after? What am I going to do after? So the players will sequence for the play that they're going to make, the attack that they want to take for this turn, and then the rest of the turn is dedicated to just getting your other synergies and things online. So there is, of course, the Trinity Nova to get the knockout. Going to attach some energy now and then take those 2 prizes. Getting the second Choice Belt is going to be great to follow up if anything should happen to this first Arceus V-Star.
Malamar is going to be the active for Grant, and again, your VMAX is the only way to victory here. You got to hope that you can just strip the hand of Gabe away. And
beautiful off the top. There's the capture energy attachment. Going to go searching through the deck now for a basic.
Yeah,
is there anything left?
You don't even really need anything.
Yeah, the EVs were
already
the EVs were already discarded. There's one more left in there.
You don't need the Arceus. Again, you're just searching through your deck to see what resources you have left, and if it's worth it to go for the Evolution Incense for the B-Barrel instead of the Malamar VMAX. Might be worth it just to get a Pokemon out of here so you can thin the deck here.
Yeah, Grant is going to still put the Arceus down. Maybe sensing that I'm going to take a couple prize cards here in the next turn or 2, and hopefully I can get to my Arceus V. We've seen so many times where the Starbirth ability can be used right out of the gate in order to solidify your advantage or complete your setup. but later on in the game, once you get that Arceus V-Star off the prizes, it can find you that clutch 1 or 2 cards that you need to stabilize a game, bring it back. Oh man, look at that vintage. That vintage, is that a switch? You love it. Oop.
Yeah, it looks like Grant already had the Malamar VMAX in hand, so pretty good, but the unfortunate draws there means you can't really do much else. 180 damage, and you'll be able to strip a card away. Maybe the boss's orders. You could do the choice belt.
Yeah, there was a boss's orders discarded before, but just going to get rid of the double turbo there, sent it down to the bottom, trying to cut off the attacks here. I know that we saw a bit of that in day 1, where with the Fan of Waves, Crushing Hammer, any sort of disruption to delay your opponent by a turn or 2 can just buy you so much time to get set up and get that advantage.
And here we see that boss's orders, though, and by not putting it back, it allows the knockout to be taken on this Malamar V, but your VMAX didn't get hit, so silver lining, I guess?
But Gabe is still going to be now down to 2 prize cards remaining, and Grant needs to fight back immensely to try to close out this first game. This is in Swiss round 11. Both of these players trying to get those final match points to secure their top 8.
And here Gabe's saying, you took my double turbo away, well, I'm just going to attach 3 energy anyway.
Getting more attackers set up and ready to go, and this is the worry. This is one of the strengths of Arceus, one of the many strengths of Arceus V-Star, is it sits in the active, sets up all the rest of your attackers, so when it finally goes down, your opponent only takes 2 prize cards, and then you can just swing right back and get knockouts in return. Second capture energy coming through.
Now, Grant did draw into a Marnie here, so that is a great way to disrupt Gabe's hand, especially because it's like 20 cards. But it is the one way to try to lock it out. But Gabe already has 2 other attackers charged up, and needing just 1 more knockout on one of these multiple prize card Pokemon will seal it up for game 1. And honestly, Grant can only really Marnie, can't draw many cards with the Industrious Incisors, and
yep, so there's the Max Jammer. Going to take a look at the hand. Beautiful fanning, by the way, Gabe.
it's a little awkward because if you take the Marnie or something like that here, the Luminion, just go ahead and grab another supporter. That choice belt's probably the biggest thing. It's the most damage you can help.
Yeah, grabs the Marnie and the Jolteon off the prizes. Still no Arceus V-Star, but Grant kind of seeing that this is pretty rough. Remind me, the Hurricane, 240 damage. The other choice belt is still ready to go.
And then a thing to note about this matchup too is the way Grant built his deck, there's no boss's orders.
Really, no boss's orders. You're just looking to take KOs on whatever your opponent decides to put up, trying to put them on bricks with the Max Jammer Marnie combination. And so you don't have the choice to pull something back from the bench and get those key prize numbers that you want to fix your mapping.
Yeah, so that Crobat V, safe. And there is the Trinity Nova getting that damage on the Malamar VMAX and charging up that Crobat VMAX. And now there's not really much Grant can do here. You're just stuck hitting the active. Your opponent has multiple Pokemon charged up, can retreat them at will, and just bring up a new attacker each turn.
Yeah, with this much energies, we have to switch here at the very least, put this damaged Malamar VMAX on the bench. Arceus V coming out, and then into the Marnie. Grant just trying to buy another round or two. Arceus V just barely big enough to stand up to a Trinity Nova.
Not that good of a Marnie for Grant. Did find a double turbo energy, so can attack with Arceus's second attack, but if you do, you just get knocked out by that Corviknight VMAX on the bench. So it will retreat and bring up the B barrel. The boss's orders, I think they're all gone, all 3 bosses. So
yeah, the only single prize Pokemon available. Grant has to put it out there. Try to buy one more turn. Find something to turn this around. Even if you take down this Arceus V-Star, Corviknight VMAX still waiting on the bench. Crobat VMAX still waiting on the bench. Plenty of energy to attack and close this one out. I don't know if there's a line here for Grant. Do you want to just scoop here and just save the time going into Game 2 and Game 3?
Honestly, you could. This game has taken quite a bit of time. And with Arceus decks in general, they tend to take a little bit more time compared to a lot of other decks in the format. But that's just because there's so much search involved. But both of these players aren't playing Inteleon, so maybe it's just a little bit faster.
So just takes the knockout on the Bibarel. Down to one prize card left for Gabe Shumway here on Game 1. Swiss round 11 at the Secaucus Regionals. Feeling really good here. At a strong foundation, has really been in the driver's seat pretty much this whole game. If Grant did not have those Arceus V-Stars in the prize cards, could have maybe found an earlier combination to transition to an advantage with the Starbirth ability. But even with access to 2 more cards from the deck, I can't really see this game going any other way. And there is the knockout.
Yeah, Grant trying to stall the game a little bit by using that memory capsule to drag off that Crobat V. But Gabe did have the answer in that energy to retreat. And with that, takes Game 1 here and maybe trying to seal up the grudge match 2-0.
Maybe. I mean, when you know that when you're in have a little bit of a history with your opponent, right? Get that little bit of a grudge. You want to play it out. You want to see where it goes. You want to get that clean sweep. I certainly don't mind staying in. The players know that they still kind of have a lot of time, just compared to like previous games you saw, especially in day 1, where the players were really running low on time, even as they headed into Game 2. And Game 3 was like they would start and only have 2 or 3 minutes left. Still looks to be plenty of time here. Grant still seems very calm and collected. Just going to shuffle the cards and say, that happens. Some of your key cards end up in the prizes, and I'm going to get my Arceus V-Star this time. No worries.
I would have liked to probably see Grant scoop there a little bit earlier. Again, when you have just no access to Arceus V-Star, it's so hard to power up your attackers, especially when your attackers are these kind of mediocre, big, clunky VMAX Pokemon. And we saw it there. Only one Malamar was able to be set up through that game, and the boss's orders coming in clutch for Gabe to snipe down that second one.
You have access to these, VMAX Pokemon, which are just the cornerstones of the format, right? They're supposed to be big, larger than life, big attacks, big effects. But, Malamar VMAX is kind of the exception. It doesn't really put up these big damage numbers that we're used to seeing off of a VMAX Pokemon. It's all about the powerful side effect of the Max Jammer, being able to take a card from the opponent's hand after even looking at your opponent's entire hand, and then getting that information and using that to plan further and further.
All right, good news for Grant fans. Arceus V-Star not in the prizes at all. And looking at the prizes for both players, doesn't seem too bad. We should have a great Game 2 here ahead of us.
Game 2, the prizes look not too detrimental for one side or the other, and both starting off with Arceus V in the active. And I love a game like this, Jeremy, where the players are kind of on an even keel and can really do what the deck is meant to do. Opening up with a quick ball here. Grant going to take a look through the deck, looking at the Arceus Vs, breathing a sigh of relief.
They're both together, too. It's just like, it would have happened again.
Oh, my goodness. That is the alternate reality we don't want to live in here. So Grant's going to get the Bidoof. The Industrious Incisors has been very valuable. It started off as kind of like a cheeky tech, like, I'm going to test it out. One Bidoof, one Bibarel. But now it seems to be a very well-respected part of a lot of these more value-oriented Arceus decks.
Yeah, if you don't see Inteleon in the deck, you'll see Bibarel. But then if you're Gabe, you just don't play either. You're fine with just your 2 Crobat.
That's true, because you can, again, as we said, make the Crobat into another attacker, so you don't have that downside that would make other players shy away from running Crobat V.
And you see both players here opt to discard the Path to the Peak pretty early. It is a card that only is really there to stop your opponent's Starbirth. But if you have it in play and you're trying to Starbirth, it stops yours as well.
And that's the thing. The players are saying, I don't want to hurt my chances of using the Starbirth just to make you not be able to use yours. And we know the players are confident in their decks in that way. I don't mind if you use your Starbirth because mine is going to be that much better.
Arceus V was found with the Ultra Ball, and Gabe's hand does seem pretty good. The Ultra Ball was able to thin it down. You got that Crobat V in hand. Hopefully there's an energy, maybe a double turbo energy to start Trinity charging up some Pokemon here, but no energy. It just looks like a few more Pokemon and just a Crobat for 4.
Trying to draw an energy here. Getting the turn 1 attachment is so important for setting up the turn 2 evolution into the Trinity Nova. Let's see what the grabs are.
Did find a Metal Energy. It's not the double turbo, but it is something here.
Gabe considering, do I want to put this metal down or do I want to wait? You might need to attach. We've seen so many players take that risk and get punished where they don't have the energy or they misplace it.
Yeah, it just depends on where you attach it for this matchup. And I don't know if
There's
Gabe
the pass.
has the knowledge of like the games they've played. I'm sure of it. They've played 3 or 4 games by now. That Arceus V is pretty safe on the bench, and especially with Grant having that V-Star right away, that means a knockout is almost for sure going to happen, depending on if Grant pulls the right cards.
I keep harping on it, but I love that switch. It's just so nostalgic. But the Starbirth goes off. What do you think Grant is going to be looking for here? Maybe a Malamar V, maybe an Evolution Incense, get the Bibarel online. Gets a double turbo. That was a pretty quick grab. And the Malamar also picked up. So Grant's already working on getting an aggressive foundation established. Not looking for value just yet. Wants to jump out ahead of Gabe. Hopefully maybe cutting off a Starbirth.
Yeah, and actually looking through the list here, there's no Choice Belt in the deck. So Grant doesn't actually have a way to take a knockout here. He does have the Galarian Zigzagoon, but that's the only like damage modifier you have. So here we see the full gambit, Turbo Energy and Path to the Peak with that big Professor's Research. So at least we'll be able to charge up a Malamar for next turn.
Going all in onto the board and then being able to reload with the Professor's Research, one of the most satisfying things you can do in the Pokemon TCG, and getting your Starbirth off. I said the players were trying to be nice to each other, but Grant took his Starbirth and said, Path to the Peak, now you don't get yours. This is the makings of Grant completely running away with this game in the next couple turns.
To be fair, also, the way Gabe built his deck, it is a little bit more reliant on those abilities from Crobat, from Lumineon, from that Arceus. So if this Path to the Peak sticks, it could be really detrimental here. I do believe there is a Pumpkaboo in the list for Gabe, so that is a way to get rid of it pretty easily with a Quick Ball.
And it looks like that's what it is. How dare you deny my Starbirth? Let me Quick Ball here. Looking for it, looking for it. Is it in the prizes? Oh, no. Did we?
It's in the prizes.
It's in the prizes. They got us again, chat.
Oh, no. This might not be the game for Gabe here. You have that Lumineon in hand, needed that Pumpkaboo to get that Path to the Peak out, and this is where Grant's deck capitalizes on the weakness of Gabe's hand. You get that Malamar VMAX, that Max Jammer going, and eventually it's just too late.
This setup is something that is feared by players. And every time we've seen the Arceus Malamar decks make an appearance on the stream, it doesn't quite come together, but when it does, you can feel the despair from the opponent. Gabe is like, oh no, Pumpkaboo can't get rid of the Peak. I've got a damaged Arceus V in the active. No evolutions going on my bench. No attackers powered up yet. And maybe this is where Gabe is considering a scoop.
Yeah, again, this is even more with the time running out. There's 25 minutes left. You have the switch to the Arceus V and most likely just a pass here. Oh no, this is not where you want to be for Gabe. You have that VMAX, but it's not really going to do too much. And Grant senses weakness in the play, and you're going to see some pretty easy playing here from Grant.
Yep. Once you get set up like this, you're just easy breezy, play it out, collect a very good win, low-hanging fruit, as they say. And Grant's got the Bidoof now off the captured energy. Thinking about how I want to approach this. Do I want to just damage this Arceus V? There's the evolution now. Malamar V Max in play.
And this is essentially what Gabe was doing the previous game. You just set up multiple attackers. You don't really have to do too much. You're applying a ton of pressure, and your opponent's not doing anything. So this is exactly where Grant wants to be to swing this match around.
Yep, just attaches the 1 energy off of the Trinity Nova. And every once in a while, we see this kind of sequence happen. Not just the control aspect, but the my opponent has 2 or 3 damaged Pokemon aspect. And you can just take your pick of whatever prize cards happen to get offered to you. You talked to Jeremy about how Grant doesn't have the boss's orders, just swings in on whatever's in the active until I eventually win. You think of control decks as being very slow and manipulative, but this one is just keep hitting until I win.
Second Malamar VMAX for Grant here. You have that Marnie, but you're not going to play that card. Your opponent's been doing nothing.
Yeah, just keep on swinging. And there's another Trinity Nova taking the KO. Going to look through the prizes here. Another energy attachment into the shuffle. And so now Corviknight VMAX taking up space in the active. And there's finally the scoop. After seeing that final draw, going to go to a game 3. Grant really showcasing what the deck was capable of doing. And, you know, just a complete inverse of the first game.
Oh, for sure. And that was a great scoop there from Gabe, giving yourself plenty of time to play a game 3, just over 23 minutes left. And you just have to hope your prizes are a little bit better. We said, it wasn't too bad, but the Pumpkaboo was coming in clutch, and it just wasn't showing up at all. It wasn't Halloween, I guess.
Halloween was canceled. And Jeremy, what I like about that game was how we saw the timing of a card. Yeah. When you play it at just the right time, can quadruple its power and impact, and that was a perfectly timed Path to the Peak. We thought that it wouldn't have that big of an impact on the game, but once you get your Starbirth, deny it to the opponent, cut off all those abilities, the lockdown was absolutely sealed.
Yeah, it was great to see, and that's what Grant wants to do in these matchups, especially when your opponent, like Gabe, is playing multiple Crobat, the Luminion V, and that's their only way of setting up. It's what you want to do, and that's why Grant has the Jolteon in his deck, so you can do the same thing against Inteleon.
That way to tech into different matchups, but still control them in the same way, just goes to show how much Grant respects this win condition, this style of win condition, and I think has been putting it together quite consistently. And as we head into game 3 after the shuffles, I think we're maybe due for one more mulligan. I'm going to call it now.
Whoa, don't say it now, Adam. Come on.
If I say it, then it'll counter the jinx, and then it won't happen. And now we have a better idea of which cards are the most important to not have prize. We're going to be keeping a closer eye on that.
Oh, it looks like a mulligan from Grant here. You did it.
Let's go. We got to get it out early. I'm just testing the limits of my power.
And a kind of awkward start here for Gabe. Had that Crobat V, but the last card was the Galarian Zigzagoon. Neither of them you really want to start with, but you'd rather start that 1 prizer over that 2 prizer.
All right. So what would you rather have? Less than optimal basic Pokemon in the active, or have to take a bunch of mulligans?
I think probably the less optimal basic. Giving your opponent advantage in this format is just pretty crazy to think about, because one card can make or break if your hand is amazing or terrible.
And here we go.
Ooh, last card doesn't even want to show it.
Okay, mystery card.
It's a Bidoof.
Okay, but now we're taking a look at the prizes. Malamar VMAX in, the Pumpkaboo is free, some Darkness Energy in there.
Arceus V is the starter for Grant, so a little bit better than Gabe here this game 3, but Gabe does get to go first and has that quick ball to find one of his own.
All right, gets rid of the Path to the Peak.
Gonna be eyeing down that Pumpkaboo to make sure it's in there. All right, it's already in there.
Yep, already pulling the Arceus V for the quick ball and just looking through the rest of the deck, checking those prizes. And, you know, the other aspect of the Caster Curse is something that we think won't be important in the prizes will certainly end up being important somehow.
Yes, for sure. Thankfully, 2 Arceus V and a Crobat, so the Crobat's probably the biggest thing in that prize cards. You already have the one in hand, so that's your draw for this game. And you can take that Crobat, it's down at the bottom. So hopefully if you get some prizes going, it can be a little better.
And with the setup of the Arceus V and Gabe on turn 1, potential energy attachment, it allows you, again, to get that evolution, you get that Trinity Nova right off the bat. And so going first here is perhaps a little bit better, especially, again, with the extra draws from the mulligan that Grant had to take. There's the metal energy attachment. And do we have another Pokemon to set up? Yep, the Crobat V just going to draw a couple cards.
Such an awkward draw here, though, because that Crobat's your only access to draw power, at least right now in the main deck. Drawing those 2 cards didn't make too much of a difference. Gabe didn't play them, but you will have to discard all those cards mostly next turn with the Professor's Research. So it does allow you to evolve into the VMAX if you draw into it.
Grant, once again, using the Evolution Incense to find the Jolteon, using it as discard fodder, setting up for a Quick Ball or an Ultra Ball, it looks like, and just taking another deep look through the deck. Even though Grant has, as we said, some cards that aren't going to help in this matchup, this Jolteon Memory Capsule EV package, the ability to discard these cards for your other effects has just allowed him to avoid any potential clunkiness whatsoever. Already planning so far ahead, thinning these cards out of the deck on turn 1 so they don't become dead draws, saying, I want to discard these immediately.
Yeah, you always want to optimize your decision making. And when you're doing that, you want to be able to get those cards out that aren't going to be that helpful, that beneficial. And then we see that here. I think there's a Professor's Research in Grant's hand. So if there's no Ultra Ball or Quick Ball or the like, that Research can do great work and discard that Jolteon.
Yeah, using the Evolution Incense just to prep the deck. We saw some other games, especially in day 1, come down to, okay, will this next 5 or 6 draws be the card I need? And sometimes that's all you have to rely on as a player.
That was a little awkward of a 7 cards for Grant, but he did find an Ultra Ball, so the Ultra Ball will be able to search for a V to charge up if he wants. We'll have to discard a couple energy cards to do it, though.
And I like putting down the preemptive Path to the Peak. We said that, you know, cutting off the Starbirth is important, but there's still a lot of Pokemon with abilities on Gabe's side that you do want to cut off. And I think this also just signals to Gabe that there is no Arceus V-Star coming. Just goes for the Trinity Charge, puts the 3 energies onto the Malamar V, and we'll see how Gabe can respond to this. Had the good opening, but nothing too scary as of yet.
Yeah, well, granted, second turn, we'll give him a little bit benefit of the doubt. Needs a way to find that Pumpkaboo now, and if you don't, then this Path to the Peak is just going to be hurting again, and that looks like a hand of a lot of cards that you just probably have to discard.
All right, just gets the Hoopa V down. Big research once again, discarding a lot of cards. Gabe did this before in the first game. as long as you know that the cards that you're discarding aren't useful, you don't mind getting rid of them. You're looking for key pieces at this point. We've seen how swingy these games can be. If one player gets set up and the other one can't keep up or respond to that tempo, it's going to be an easy win here in the third game. Everything is on the line, and the players also have plenty of time on the clock.
Off the 7 cards, did find an out to the Arceus V-Star, as well as an Ultra Ball that can find that Pumpkaboo and use it to discard the Path to the Peak. Starbirth will be able to find a double turbo energy and hopefully a way out of the active spot so you can get your Crobat charged up.
Just considering what the discard now does go for the Ultra Ball, as you said, Jeremy. And what are we going to find here? The Pumpkaboo had already set it up on the bottom there.
Pumpkin Pit to discard that Path to the Peak.
So now we can go for Starbirth. Get 2 more cards. Find something to get this Galarian Zigzagoon out of the active. Get Arceus up there so we can get Trinity Charge. Maybe get this Hoopa V set up. Get something to attack with. Another Ultra Ball.
Oh, and this is where that second Crobat would come in handy, but it's still hiding out in the prize cards. So Gabe maybe just trying to find a secondary attacker to charge up, something like that Corviknight, maybe the Lumineon to find a supporter for next turn. And with that Professor's Research, he also discarded 2 Boss's Orders. So
yeah,
just kind of saying, oh, you're not going to boss me. Maybe I won't boss you. Maybe we'll have an even playing field for this game.
Yeah, both players just recognizing it's not about, you know, trying to snipe things on the bench with the boss's orders. It's just about getting a commanding position because the both decks are just so built around just dominating the opponent, not trying to do any tricky plays and get wins off of the prizes. Once you get that overwhelming advantage, the prizes will just naturally come.
Well, the Ultra Ball did find that Lumineon V for its Luminous Sign to find a Professor's Research for next turn. And Starbirth is going to be the card, or the ability of choice for Gabe right now, finding the double turbo. And it looks like a scoop up net to pick up that Galarian Zigzagoon.
Yeah, just eyeballing it here. I wonder if Grant would even bother taking this knockout. It's only 1 prize. If you just leave this in the active, you force Gabe to jump through some hoops in order to remove it, and while it gives you some time to set up.
So there we see the switch and double turbo, so that means Gabe will be able to make an attack this turn, get that Trinity Nova for 180 damage, and charge up that Crobat or Hoopa. Either way, Hoopa does more damage right now, but if you get that VMAX, the Crobat VMAX is going to be the better attacker.
And there's the setup. 200 damage onto the Arceus V. Going to power up the Hoopa V now. And there's the draw for Grant.
Does have the Evolution Incense in hand, so B-Barrel or the Arceus V-Star could be the card of choice. Most likely going to be the V-Star, so you can Starbirth for the B-Barrel.
True, true. Now with that Path to the Peak finally removed, and that's kind of what Grant wanted, right? You put the Path to the Peak down, you force some resources out of Gabe to deal with it, and then once it's been removed, you just get to use your Starbirth here. And now diving back into the deck, Malamar VMAX grabbed, looking for B-Burl maybe. And there it is. Beautiful setup here. So few cards in hand. Industrious Incisors is going to be fantastic. With the Malamar VMAX already powered up, you aren't worried about trying to draw into another energy. Everything that you get off the Industrious Incisors is just there for extra plays, resources, and utilities. You don't need too many key cards from this position.
And honestly, with the way Gabe played out last turn, you got that 1 card in hand, the Professor's Research that Grant knows this could be a Max Jammer turn where you just 180, strip the hand out, leave your opponent with nothing. But it depends on if Grant values charging up another attacker. We do see the Quick Ball here, could find another Malamar, but you lose that ability to just go, oh, you're not going to draw cards next turn.
Quick Ball gets rid of Ultra Ball, finds Malamar V. So Malamar V going to come down onto the bench here and just slowly, manually build it up. Malamar VMAX potentially by putting Gabe on into top deck mode could very easily buy 3 turns.
I think so. You know, just We've spent time in the Pokemon TCG just manually attaching energy before. I'm sure we can do it again.
Manually attaching energy one at a
players
time.
remember that,
like
yeah.
barbarians.
Well, there we see it. Retreat. The Max Jammer hits that Professor's Research. That's one less awesome top deck for Gabe. And wow!
Oh, he's a protagonist!
Wow! Marnie off of the top, no cards in hand, and Gabe is still able to play this game.
All right, we still got a real match. This is a real Game 3. Let's go. You don't get to this stage of a regional championship without being able to pull plays like that at the drop of a hat. When the chips are down, you can get that Marty on the top. So Grant, I sense a little bit of salt in this card flicking. Like, oh, I had him locked down.
Granted, these 5 cards, not the best. Do have a Professor's Research for next turn, but that's most likely going to get stripped away yet again. So here's the Trinity Nova, can charge up the Crobat, hopefully, but oh no. Having to discard all those energy early, there's no more dark energy left in the deck.
No more darkness energy. There's 2 of the prizes, right?
No, that's for Grant.
Okay.
So just no access to those energy at all anymore.
So Hoopa V has to do all of the heavy lifting from this position.
I do believe there's an ordinary rod, so if Gabe does draw into that, it's an out. But it's going to be hard to draw into that, especially when you don't have the Professor Research in your hand next turn.
It needs to come off the top of the deck and then immediately played, because if Gabe gets access to it, Grant will Max Jammer it, maybe recognizing now the lack of the darkness energy. The players not only keeping track of their own deck, their own prizes based on their opponent's plays, can take advantage of their reads on what might be prized, what cards the opponent might be missing. And you can see Gabe and Grant have been exploring each other's discard piles throughout the set.
A little awkward turn here for Grant, though. The Industrious Incisors did not find an energy. So that means you can't manually attach to the Malamar V on the bench. So you can Max Jammer, take a knockout, strip your opponent's hand of a card, but you're not going to have another Max Jammer to go next turn.
So announces the Max Jammer, looks at the hand.
Get that Professor's Research out of here.
But the Research back on the bottom does seem to be the best option. And does get 2 prizes. There is another Darkness Energy, but missing the timing on being able to attach that. Now it's back over to Gabe. Hoopa V taking its spot in the active. Might be able to do something here.
Is that another Professor's Research off the top? No, okay. it was an Arceus V.
And maybe Gabe can take the knockout here. Malamar VMAX worth 3 prizes. Could even things up here, get a small lead.
Yeah, and there we see the Shadow Impact taking the knockout on Malamar VMAX. 3 damage on what looks like the Galarian Zigzagoon, and finding that Crobat V not going to be good here because the Path to the Peak is in play.
Still just searching through, though. The 3 prize cards, that's all that matters at this point. If we know that it's going to come down to the wire. If this Malamar VMAX now gets properly set up, Gabe might be actually locked down.
Was looking for a memory capsule to try to maybe drag off something and take the route of, I'm going to leave something in the active. I know you don't have energy left.
And so now Arceus V-Star just has to go into the active. No energies attached to it. No Trinity Nova to respond. Just takes the Shadow Impact. Another 30 damage put onto one of Gabe's benched Pokemon. And the switch comes out. We know that there is the Darkness Energy in the hand that was grabbed off of the setup here. Ultra Ball. Trying to find it.
Oh, yeah, he already attached the Dark last turn and has the double
that's
turbo.
right, yeah. So he got the Dark, was able to attach it. So it's just thinning the hand, setting up for Industrious Incisors. Going to try to top deck into another Darkness Energy. Gabe has to put a little bit of his special energy into the deck now.
Yeah, you would prefer a Dark or the Capture, and finding 2 Capture energy here. So you can save that double turbo energy for an Arceus if you want to or need to later on. And with that, Max Jammer, nothing in the hand for Gabe, but 180 damage on that Hoopa V.
So we're jamming now. Choice Belt goes back to the bottom. And Grant being able to look at the opponent's hand as well, can kind of see what options are available, is so valuable. Not just the lockdown, but the information cannot be understated.
Ordinary Rod found for Gabe, but it's a little late here. You have no way of even getting those energy out of the deck once you put them back in, and your only attacker is about to be KO'd next turn. You have no cards to draw in your hand, no cards to draw with on field. This is looking grim.
I guess the silver lining here is, as we said, Grant really just, you know, attacks in on whatever happens to be in the active. So maybe Galarian Zigzagoon and Pumpkaboo can buy a couple more turns for Gabe to pivot into something here.
Ordinary Rod shuffles back the 2 Dark Energies, but that's really just going to be it for the turn for Gabe. 170 damage, 30 damage on something like the Galarian Zigzagoon again. But again, that allows Drag Off to be a play, depending if the Malamar is still available, Memory Capsule is still available. But Grant is in a commanding position in this Game 3. Only a little over 4 minutes to go, but it should be just enough time.
Gabe only on 1 scoop up net as well. Would really like to perhaps scoop up net the Pumpkaboo, reuse that ability, but just goes for another Shadow Impact. Hoopa V trying to do its best, but it's similar to Malamar in that it doesn't do a lot of damage up front. You use that two-faced ability to kind of just hit weakness here and there where it's appropriate. You're hoping for that darkness weakness to shore up that kind of mediocre base 170. Corviknight goes back to the bottom thanks to Max Jammer. 2 more prizes grabbed by Grant, closing in on a victory here in Game 3. Still a few minutes left on the clock. Even if this match does go to time with a couple more turns, very easy for Grant to close this one out, I assume.
Gabe basically needs to top deck 2 specific cards in a row or something like a research to get everything, but he's most likely going to have to retreat back into a 1 prizer this turn if you don't get that VMAX and an energy.
Yep, Ultra Ball looking through the deck. Has the Crobat VMAX available, but again, just not having the proper energy acceleration from Arceus, having to manually attach and try to set up these plays just means you don't have the damage output that you need.
Granted, this Crobat VMAX is still safe for a turn. It can tank a hit from the Malamar VMAX. Then if you do draw a Dark, you can Stealth Poison, bring it back to the bench. Your opponent has no boss's orders, so that's going to be safe. Bring up that Pumpkaboo or Galarian Zigzagoon, and then hopefully you top deck an energy again. But that's going to be the only way Gabe can actually win this match.
All right, the prophecy has been locked in, everyone. Jeremy's calling it. He got the Marnie earlier when the chips were down. Got that Marnie off the top deck, so drawing the 2 Darkness Energies here pretty soon after they were shuffled back into the deck from the Ordinary Rod is the path to victory for Gabe. He's sticking in. This Game 3 is so important. So, of course, he's going to play towards that out.
Just over 2 minutes to go. Grant thinning out the deck, just making sure he can draw into anything he would possibly need. And then Max Jammer playing pretty fast now, too. Gonna shuffle back that quick ball.
And now we're back over to Gabe.
Dark Energy. Professor's Research, something. Scoop Up Net.
Scoop Up Net has it for the Pumpkaboo.
Pumpkin Pit discards the path to the peak.
Dark asset for 5.
Needs to find a Dark Energy here to get this Crobat VMAX out of the active spot. Does not find it, but has a Marnie for a supporter. Is there something like a Professor's Research?
Yeah, riffling the hand too much. Has to think. Now that Gabe is making a break back into Game 3, this 1 minute left on the timer is very relevant because if Gabe is on the way back to making this comeback, needs the proper amount of turns to do it.
There is a Professor's Research in the hand, too. Gabe is thinking about attaching that double Turbo Energy, but if you do, you're going to have to just retreat this Crobat VMAX and probably play for the tie. So you need to play that Professor's Research, draw into the Dark Energy, and get that Stealth Poison out.
Oh, yeah. Calculating the odds, you know that this game is tight.
Drawing the one of Scoop Up Net, but does attach the double turbo energy.
Attaches the double turbo. Still calculating. Down to 30 seconds left in the round. Once time is called, Grant's going to be going over into potentially turn 1 instead of turn 0. Choice belt.
Still plays the
Research.
Professor's Research.
10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Oh, and found the dark energy too. So there is still a way for Gabe to win this. You can retreat the Crobat into the one prizer. Grant will have to take the knockout. Then you come in with that Arceus V-Star and find the last boss's orders, if it's in the deck, to take the knockout if Grant doesn't attack with this Malamar VMAX.
All right, so the timer has dwindled down, and the turn has gone over to Grant. The retreat has happened, but Gabe still hasn't actually ended the turn. My mistake.
A little awkward retreating to the Arceus, but again,
With
doesn't matter too much.
With no damage modifiers,
yeah.
like you were saying, still very safe.
Now this is going to be a big Marnie from Grant because your opponent, they need an energy to take the knockout. You can Marnie and Max Jammer, maybe hopefully strip their hand, but with the way Gabe's been top decking this entire game, I don't know.
So now we are into it. Grant saying, I can't modify the damage. I have to just keep attacking on what the opponent has in the active. And now when the chips are down with time called in round 3, game 3, it's he's actually pretty detrimental if Gabe is able to buy another couple rounds.
One important thing to note too is time was called with Gabe being turn 0.
So Grant now on turn 1.
That means Gabe has 1 turn to find that boss's orders energy, or just the energy depending on what Grant leaves in the active spot.
Drawing back up to 5. Has the memory capsule.
That's why I deal them out.
Another path to peak. Oh my God, this is so close. This is so close. Grant really just needs 2 more prizes. There's so many good targets in play. But has to think, is there a way I can get this knockout?
You can retreat the Malamar VMAX into the Arceus because it's just 2 prizes. Your opponent won't be able to do anything. But if you do that, you can 1-10, and then there's no way to actually come back and get the other KO. We're going to see a drag off here.
Yeah, so memory capsule. Refresh my memory on this specific wording. It gives you access to an attack from the previous evolution.
You can use the attacks from your previous cards under it, and I think we're going to see a brain shake here. 130 damage and confusion. That would be another way to kind of give yourself an out to the energy top deck, but that just depends. Does your opponent have the energy in hand and you Max Jammer? Do they have 2 energy and the Max Jammer does nothing? This is such a big attack for Grant.
You've got to, like, going for the play and has to consider. Gabe was calculating odds at the end of that last turn, and now Grant has to say, do I want to take confusion odds?
You could also drag off the Crobat VMAX, and I think that's what we're going to see here because that's an easy KO next turn. Your opponent still needs to retreat. Who knows if they have a switch out.
Yeah, so drag off, as you said, Jeremy, lets you switch the active with the bench and then do 30 damage to that new Pokemon. Crobat VMAX now in the active, calling out the lack of energy.
And looking at the hand for Gabe, it's not going to do it. There's just quick balls. There's that double turbo energy. So did have the energy, but because of the drag off, not able to do anything.
Yeah, just as the double turbo into the retreat.
I don't know if Grant's going to be able to pull off the victory with no boss.
Yeah, you just retreat into a single prizer.
And remember, this is turn 2 now going to turn 3, last turn of this game.
Last turn of this set. What a close one. Game 1, Gabe was able to take a decisive victory. Grant responded back with a fantastic control setup in Game 2. And now both players, after scoping out the matchup, were both able to respond in kind to each other's plays and drag it down to this stalemate.
And it looks like it is going to be a tie. We'll get that confirmation, but of course, wow. It is a tie.
And that's like a true tie,
Yeah.
right? A lot of ties are just like, oh, if I had 1 or 2 more turns, I could have taken the win, but that was like a pure stalemate. Both players playing their heart out, clutch top decks, and I think that both players are certainly happy with that result.
Yeah, both players could have taken different lines in those last couple turns to kind of give them an out to victory. If the Crobat had the dark energy on it, you could stealth poison, but then you'd have to find a way to retreat.
Yeah.
That was always the big thing. And then Grant chose Drag Off instead of Max Jammer, but if you Max Jammer, you can maybe strip that double turbo energy away from the hand, but then your opponent has a chance to draw an energy. There's so many micro decisions in those last couple of turns that led to that tie, but it could have been either way.
Yeah, the players are going to go back and watch that game. A lot of, the viewers might even go back and rewatch that game and just really absorb and appreciate the decisions that were made right there towards the end when all the chips were down.
Yeah, I'm just glad we got a good Game 3 that wasn't decided by I prize something. Both of those players are still going to be at the top of the standings. They're going to have 28 match points right now,
Wow.
9, 1-1. So still just a win and most likely in, you might need another tie here or there, but 31 match points is most likely going to be the bubble. 32 usually gets in, again, bigger tournaments we've seen it differ, but